4 ways context matters for wildfire news coverage. Reporters can help audiences see the forest, even when the trees are on fire.
News is news. And fire is fire. But coverage of wildfires in 2024 is more than a matter of acres burned, percent contained, drought and wind conditions, evacuation orders, and threats to lives and property. All that is important, but it's not the full story. Journalists play a role interpreting the significance of wildfire events within a broader context. For example, over the past decade, following the available science, reporters have shifted from covering wildfires simply as natural disasters, and zeroing in on a singular cause or spark, to clarifying how they are climate-boosted natural disasters. Global warming is one major factor creating conditions for more severe fires that are more difficult to fight. Inevitably, these days, press coverage also acknowledges the new realities of smoke season and the health hazards of poor air quality even for communities far from the site of the fires. Now, as megafires burn across the West and firefighters put their lives on the line yet again, it's time to highlight other human-caused factors exacerbating the wildfire crisis, framing fire as only bad, and not as a natural part of our ecosystems and landscapes, insufficient prevention measures that actively use beneficial fire, and policies that encourage building houses in wildfire-prone areas and that discourage making these homes fire-resistant. Here are 4 ways to tell the full story of wildfires, essential context for journalists. Number 1. Reframe wildfires as natural. The destruction that can occur during wildfires is tragic. At the same time, it's crucial to understand that wildfires and human-started fires have burned regularly throughout the West for thousands of years and that fire has benefits in ecosystem health and in preventing large and severe fires. In places with high summer temperatures, low humidity, and little rain, the natural fire return interval can be just 10 to 15 years. Then another fire comes through, clearing out the debris that would otherwise accumulate into highly flammable kindling and reinvigorating fire-adapted ecosystems where fire is needed to activate seeds and to clear openings where wildlife can browse on young tree shoots and ground-level shrubs. Indigenous people have relied on controlled burns to cultivate food, fiber, and forage and to mitigate big, destructive fires. Subtler colonial history of putting out all fires has left a legacy of choked forests where wildlife suffers, and the accumulation of forest fuels turns what could be small fires into megafires. Now, the United States and Canada are transitioning away from full suppression and trying to return a more natural regime of beneficial fire to clear forest fuels. Their success depends in part on a cultural redefinition of wildfires as natural. While the news story is often necessarily focused on people and destruction, journalists can take steps to cast fires as a natural part of Western landscapes. For example, when covering a fire, mention what the area's natural fire return interval is, by referencing a map, or its level of wildfire hazard, which combines the likelihood of a fire with its expected severity, also shown on maps. Showcasing physical evidence, like a photograph of fire scars on a cross-section of tree growth rings, is also effective. This sets the expectation of fire as a natural occurrence with an important role in preventing the accumulation of fuel. Show that fire is baked into ecosystem life by referencing local species that are fire-dependent or fire-adapted. Identify such species through a quick call to a local ecologist with U.S. Forest Service, U.S. Bureau of Land Management, or State Department of Natural Resources. Describe wildfire in neutral terms instead of alarming and negative ones. For example, replace devastating wildfires with large and high-intensity wildfires or just wildfires. Measure damage in terms of community destruction rather than acres burned. For example, instead of writing 2024 has been the worst fire season in Oregon's history, write more acres have burned in 2024 than in any fire season in Oregon's history, and consider adding, but no structures have been lost.
Number 2. Report on the beneficial aspects of wildland fires.
When fires leave destruction in their wake, that is probably the main news story. But the untold wildfire story is that most wildfires do not destroy human-made property. Further hidden is the fact that wildfires tend to improve forest health, and small, low-intensity fires mean fewer high-intensity, destructive wildfires as well as less smoke and more carbon storage in fire-adapted ecosystems. Press coverage and education about these important jobs that wildfire performs would lay the groundwork for policies and practices that deliver more beneficial fire. Two important tools to realize these benefits are prescribed burns and what firefighters call managed wildfire for resource benefit, MWRB, the clunky term of art for carefully monitoring a wildfire as it is allowed to burn and restore forest health instead of immediately and completely putting it out. Reporting on these practices can illustrate their community upsides, such as reducing public spending on future emergency fire suppression. Here are ways journalists can show the benefits of fire. Discuss specific forest health benefits a wildfire may be delivering. During the decades after a wildfire, report on resulting forest health and ecological richness. Note the community safety benefits of wildfire. For example, document when a current fire stops or becomes less severe when it reaches the perimeter of a past fire that has cleared out forest fuels. Cover prescribed burns. Highlight that many valuable burns take place for each rare controlled burn that escapes. Steal this title: Firefighters use controlled fire to fight out of control fire's toll. Give examples of the tangible, broadly experienced benefits of controlled, preventative burns, such as air quality. A little smoke now is less harmful than a lot of smoke later. Report on firefighters' efforts to monitor and manage wildfires for the benefits they may provide instead of immediately and completely suppressing them. This includes allowing a fire to burn in a direction where it does not threaten communities while using total suppression on a community-facing front. For example, using information from the National Wildfire Coordinating Center, on July 8, 73 large active fires are being managed nationwide and have burned 499,192 acres. Of these, 48 wildfires are being managed under a strategy other than full suppression because of the forest health benefits fire may provide. Even when fires are immediately and fully suppressed, managed wildfire can be kept in mind, as in this hypothetical example reporting. No part of this fire is being managed for resource benefits. The strategy is immediate and full suppression because it's too close to residential areas.
Number 3, point out that residences in hazard areas are a main factor in structure loss and wildfire spending.
It is crucial not to blame victims of wildfire tragedy. At the same time, it is vital to identify what is emerging as a primary cause of wildfire destruction. Building houses in fire-prone areas of the wildland-urban interface, WUI. This is as important, and more controllable, than the two more commonly cited factors escalating the wildfire crisis: climate change and the buildup of forest fuels. Development is spreading at an alarming rate in the fire-prone VOI, often in the footprint of a recent fire, and this significantly raises the number of fires, property damage, and public spending on fire suppression. Development in fire-prone areas also hinders the effective use of tools such as prescribed burn and managed wildfire for resource benefit, MWRB. Here are some ways journalists can build this context into wildfire coverage. Along with climate change and forest fuels, highlight residential development in natural fire areas as a major factor driving the wildfire crisis. When wildfires threaten new dwellings that were constructed despite clear wildfire risk, point this out and report on the additional public spending on fire resources. Include research linking residential development patterns to wildfire damage, when reporting on evacuations or structure loss. Cite the higher suppression costs and greater danger to firefighters when houses are near wildlands.
Number 4, report on policies, including financial incentives, driving housing development decisions.
Follow the money. From public subsidy for firefighting to insurance industry practices to land use laws, public policies are driving patterns of wildfire destruction. Specifically, These policies incentivize two primary causes of wildfire destruction: building new houses in high-hazard zones and not fire-hardening at-risk homes. Voters could change these policies, which exacerbate the wildfire crisis and strain public coffers, if they knew about them. One key reason homeowners build in risky places and neglect to fire harden is that they do not bear anywhere near the full costs of preventing, fighting, or recovering from wildfires. Without fire protection, homes in hazard areas, especially non-hardened homes, would burn down. Fire protection alone can subsidize up to 20% or more of a home's value in the western United States. When this fire protection fails, the public costs of emergency response, infrastructure repair, and debris removal add additional hidden subsidies to private homeowners, amounting to billions of dollars annually. In addition to these taxpayer-funded subsidies, private home insurance customers across the United States, especially those in low-hazard areas, are subsidizing insurance premiums in high wildfire hazard zones. If people had to pay the full cost of wildfire insurance, they would likely build less and harden more in the fire-prone VOI. Urban land use policies are another hidden driver of housing growth in fiery places. Restrictions that prevent home building in established cities and towns, such as single-family zoning and minimum parking mandates, drive housing availability down and prices up. These rules push new housing development to sprawl and incentivize building in the VOI. When we talk about wildfire risk to people and homes, we should look at the laws in nearby jurisdictions that are pushing new housing, and the people who need it, away from wildfire-safe cities and towns and into harm's way. When reporting on the public costs of fighting and cleaning up after wildfires, connect skyrocketing public expenditures to the incentive that Free Fire Services offers for building new dwellings in wildfire hazard zones. Explain that insurance non-renewals and rate increases should be vital indicators of where it is unsafe to build. But emphasize that today's artificially low premiums, due to low-risk customers subsidizing premiums in wildfire zones and premiums not reflecting ever-intensifying wildfires, are sending the wrong message and encouraging people to build in harm's way. When legislatures are considering passing or rejecting urban pro-housing legislation, like allowing more housing near transit, legalizing co-living homes, easing parking mandates, and relaxing single-family housing restrictions, discuss the consequences for rural sprawl and wildfire risk, and the related hidden costs for everyone, as mentioned above. Report on proactive measures to redirect growth away from wildfire hazard areas. Report on proactive measures to spur home hardening. Highlight places where land use/growth management laws and ordinances are successfully preventing wildfire damage by limiting growth in fire-prone areas and encouraging infill housing in existing urbanized areas, for example Bend, Oregon. Journalists can modernize wildfire beliefs. Our expectations regarding wildfires have rapidly evolved. For much of the 20th century, firefighting could protect communities, and the conventional wisdom has been that wildfires are bad. But today, even the best technology cannot always control climate-intensifying wildfires, and the costs and risks of protecting populations in fire-prone areas are mounting, with climate change supercharging wildfire severity and populations sprawling into natural wildfire landscapes. And today, the scientific consensus is that fire can play a beneficial role in fire-adapted landscapes, helping prevent crisis-level destruction, health impacts from smoke, and loss of human life, livestock, and property. Policies are finally starting to shift towards reallocating funds from suppression to prescribed burns and encouraging fire-adapted communities. However, public awareness lags behind. Many still do not realize that allowing some fires to burn can prevent larger ones, or that a little smoke now means less smoke later. Even fewer people recognize that publicly funded firefighting, urban housing policy, subsidizing insurance, and insufficient growth management can inadvertently encourage risky development in fire-prone areas. Journalists can bridge this knowledge gap by providing essential context.